Hey everyone, good morning. It's a cold January 19th morning, Martin Luther King Day. We honor his legacy in life today, and I am honored to be here talking to Lydia Powell, who is one of the State Superintendent of School candidates for the Democratic nomination. Lydia, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, just trying to warm up a little bit, but I'm doing great today.
No, good. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking a little time to do this.
Mhm.
I usually just when I have a candidate here doing this, I usually just let them take the first 2 or 3 minutes to introduce themselves. Who are you? What's important about your life? That sort of thing. So I'm going to turn the screen over to you now and let you do that.
Okay, so my name is Dr. Lydia Powell. I'm a 26-year educator. 24 of those years have been in Georgia. I'm also a mother of three students that are products of the public education system here in Georgia. My son graduated in 2016 from Fayette County High School, and I have a senior who's going to be graduating from Fayette County High this year, 2026. And then I have a junior who will be graduating next year, 2027. So we are a proud, Georgia family. And I have, several graduates. I also work very closely with my local school system. So I've served as PTSO president. I serve on CTSO boards with HOSA, Skills USA. I also work very closely on the Principals Council as well. In the last election here, I did run for school board for District 1 for Fayette County. I started my career in Lee County, Florida, and I was a special education teacher there. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I'm also a member of Jack and Jill of America. I am a member of the Fayette County Democratic Committee, where I serve as the post seat holder. In addition to that, I serve my local government as well. I sit on the ethics board for the city of Fayetteville. And I've also just completed the Citizens Police Academy for Fayetteville as the City
Wow.
of Fayetteville Police Department as well. This year, I was also honored by the 100 Black Women of Atlanta as a unsung hero just for my work that I do in the community. I currently serve as the Social Action Chair for the Fayette County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So that's just a little bit about me.
Well, thank you. That's a lot, actually. I'm not. Hopefully, you get some sleep in there somewhere along the way. I was noticing you said you're 26 years. You started teaching in 2000.
Yeah,
Is
so
that
actually started teaching in 1998, and then I
right?
took
Okay.
a year off to actually go back to school for my master's degree. And I did that because when I went into the school system, I did not realize how many students needed to be served in special education. So what I
Yeah.
did was I taught for 2 years, and then I left and went to Florida State and did my master's degree in emotional disturbances and learning disabilities so that I could have the tools needed to navigate being a teacher in this educational system. So yeah, I started in 1998.
Okay. Well, the reason I was asking, I started in 2000. I retired at the end of 24, and
Oh,
so
nice.
I had some Navy time put in and all that. So yeah, I love our retirement system. By the way, please do everything you can to protect our retirement system.
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right. So tell us a little bit about why you're now running all the stuff you're doing now. You're running for the state school superintendent. Why are you doing that?
Yes. So I always had my eye on this position ever since I moved here in 2001. However, my plan for running was going to be after my children finished high school. However, when I researched the candidates, we have some great candidates. However, we need someone who has public K through 12 educational experience. I think it gives you insight on the budget. It gives you insight on legislation when you're actually doing the work and doing the work at different levels. So for me, I was an educator in regular education. I was an educator in special education. I served as an administrator. I served as a parent. I served in schools, high ESOL populations in South Florida. I served in schools, high poverty schools, Title I schools. I've served in schools that are in high high achieving schools, schools in high income areas. So I just have a variety of experiences. In addition to that, just my ability to collaborate with people in regard to what needs to happen in our school system. It's important to have those collaborative skills. It's important to have those relationships and that social equity. I've worked on several campaigns. I work closely with several members of the legislature. So it's important to have someone that has those relationships so that you can let some of our concerns be known. So that's why I decided to jump in this race, just to give Democrats a viable option or someone that has that educational experience in public school.
Thank you. And I always say this to every candidate. Thank you for running. It's hard to run in this state. It's a big state, 159 counties. It's
Mhm.
hard to get everywhere and try to do this sort of thing. So I appreciate that. Looking at education, sort of generally speaking, what would you say your two, it doesn't necessarily have to be two, but two top issues, three top issues are, in your opinion,
Okay.
facing us now? So,
The number one issue is we need a universal pre-K. Currently with the system, a lot of communities, they have lottery systems. So when you go into the school, you may have one class in each elementary school that is earmarked for pre-K education. So that means a parent has to enter into a lottery just to get one of those slots. And you may only have 25 slots in a whole district, each
right.
elementary school. So if you have 10 elementary schools, that's 25 times 10. If you are left out of that, if you don't make that, then you have to think about options for your 4-year-old to get that preschool education. That it could be a game changer. If we had a universal pre-K system, use some of that lottery money or use some of those funds. I think we have a lot of grant money available. If we use those funds to actually put in place a universal pre-K, we could also look at making some adjustments to the 12th grade year. A lot of students are doing dual enrollment now. A lot of students are not taking a full course load and doing work-based learning. So you can look at some of those funds that we use at that 12th grade level and filter it back down to the pre-K level. That would increase readiness. So when we look at readiness for our students and students that are in poverty, having a pre-K system in Georgia would be a total game changer. The second thing that I would look at is teacher retention. As an administrator, I would definitely say over the past 5 years, it has been very difficult to get quality certified educators in our buildings. It's also very difficult to get special education, science, and math teachers, especially in those high level science and math classes. And so we really need to look at some sort of recruitment and retention. When I first started teaching looked very different than it does now.
Yeah.
There are a lot of perks that I received as a single person coming into the school system. The county paid for my insurance, my health insurance.
Right.
That is huge when you're looking at your paycheck and you're not having to pay into health insurance every month. Um, so we really need to look at high needs areas for recruitment. We also need to do more as far as supporting teachers that want to leave other industries and become certified. So now, if I hire a teacher that may have graduated with a biology degree and doesn't have certification, they're going to have to pay for certification to be in a
Right.
certification program. And they're already working for us, making a provisional salary or substitute salary. And then they also have to pay. So we have
Right.
issues with retaining teachers, recruiting teachers. If someone wants to do this work, we need to have funds to be able to pay for them to actually get the certification and the credentials needed to work in that position. And so we need to look at that funding for that. So we really need to invest in our human capital so that we can retain teachers. So those are my top two priorities. I have some more, but those are the top
Right.
two.
Okay. Thank you. Now, there's probably, even I, as an educator, I always have to think about what exactly. the state superintendent of schools does. I know the state superintendent's in charge of Godot, Department of Education. Uh, what kind of power or what kind of influence does a state superintendent of school have over something like teacher salary? What can they do
Okay.
in something like that?
Right. So what I would definitely do now as an educator, you're not going to be a millionaire by being a
Right,
teacher.
right.
That's just an upfront thing. Salary
Hmm.
scales, you can even Google who makes what, it's open
Right,
records where you can see. So when people go into this field, they understand that. However, I would definitely start by saying that you can be very influential in having these conversations concerning teacher salaries. So, number one, you look at advocating for systematic changes in legislation in regard to salaries. In addition to that, you can set standards for supplements. So, when we're looking at tutoring or coaching, things of that nature, you can actually, as a state superintendent, influence the funding for that as well. We
right.
also need to look at, grant funded certifications for teachers. Again, as I stated, we know going into this, it is not going to be something that is going to make you rich, but you want to, be able to earn a living wage. So looking at those grants, looking at tuition reimbursement. So in my opinion, we just need to find ways or be influential in finding ways to lower costs for educators. So we understand that our funding for our salaries, it comes from taxes.
Yeah,
And so if we increase salaries, we are looking at increasing taxes, which also negatively it doesn't benefit us to pay increased taxes. So we have to look at how to reduce for teachers. So again, the tuition reimbursement, making sure that you are a voice for your state regarding federal loan forgiveness programs. A lot of people who go into education, they have loans, so many loans they can't even get a mortgage because their debt to income ratio is too high. So
right.
advocating, being the voice of Georgia to speak on that, the loan forgiveness, advocacy. So advocating for affordable housing in your community for educators. A lot of the boards I sit on in Fayette, and we're growing and building, and it is very expensive to live in Fayette County. But I'm one of the voices that say, hey, we're building Trillis, we have USA Soccer coming here, but there are workers that are coming here with it. We're building these new subdivisions. Are we going to earmark 10% of the homes in this community where they're affordable for people who are moving in to work in these industries? So that's something communities can do. And as state superintendent, you can be a voice to influence that. You can speak to different communities about that. Investments in health insurance. So I remember when I did open enrollment last year, I did it in November. When I got that paycheck in January, I went to go to human resources because I was getting paid less this last year than I was 2 years ago. Why? Because my insurance premiums went up. So, that is another thing, advocating for, some kind of caps with health insurance or grant funding for districts so that they're able to put in more for health insurance. And so the other thing is pushing for statewide culture and climate. So a lot of times teachers leave this field because of culture and climate, because of school safety, because of things like that. So they're willing to, take less salary if they know they're in a safe school, if they know they're in a supportive environment, if they know they have a leadership team that is qualified to be their leaders. So, statewide training for culture and climate, setting professional development in that statewide platform. So those are just some things that I think the state superintendent can influence in regard to salaries or increasing spendable income for teachers.
Okay. And how would you say now in the last couple of years I was a teacher, it seemed like the non-certified staff was getting harder to keep manned as well, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, et cetera. What can we do? What can the state superintendent do? I guess pretty much the same thing you probably just said, but are there
Mhm.
things that need to be done for them? as well.
Oh, definitely. I talk to my bus drivers, and I live in a community where my kids have known the same bus driver from kindergarten all the way to 11th and 12th grade because they love what they do. However, when I speak to my bus drivers, one of the things they say is the safety issue. This is one. Students, with behaviors on the bus. So just having town halls, with parents about school, safety from the bus stop all the way to the school. In addition to that, when I talk to bus drivers and non-certified staff, they also talk about benefits. Some of these districts are moving to this being an hourly position that is non-benefited. That is huge. So that would be the number one issue when I speak to non-certified staff. It is important for them to have benefits. So that is one of the things that I would say as state superintendent, you would want to work with your local superintendents to advocate for that, to talk about the importance of that, making sure that the voices of these people are heard, again, by having town halls or community conversations about that, and looking at filtering some of that grant money to assist some of these districts that are in need of being able to supply that for non-certified staff.
Okay, thank you. And of course, the state provides funding. It doesn't just provide the same funding to every county. It weighs things. It has a formula, QBE. What do you see needs to, if anything, what do you see needs to be sort of tinkered with or changed about that QBE formula? Or are there certain counties that are at more of a disadvantage that need more help, do you think?
Okay. So as far as the QBE is concerned, all right. So I know there's been new legislation that has been introduced actually just last week. The legislation that was put out there last year did not pass in the House or the Senate. But I do know, I did hear last night, and I'm very happy for that. I did hear last night that there is new legislation from the Senate that has been introduced. So hopefully that will go through. But when we look at the QBE formula, we definitely need a part of that formula, a weighted part of that formula that focuses on students in poverty. And so when we look at the current, we in Georgia have a weighted I'm not a weighted, we have a hybrid QB formula that does weight certain things. So it weights the grade level, special education, gifted services, and also tier 3, which is in the MTSS. So for EIP and REP services. All right. There has to be a poverty weight. And so when we look at poverty in Georgia as far as children are concerned, oh, and the state of Georgia also offers $28 million in grants that is dedicated directly to schools in poverty or students in poverty. However, those grants are typically one-time grants, and those are grants that you have to apply for. Okay, so when we look at the number of children in poverty in Georgia, there are 461,000 children that are living in poverty in Georgia. So to say that we don't need a poverty rate doesn't even make sense to me because we know what the statistics say about children living in poverty. They're 30% less likely to graduate from high school. They're 23% of children in poverty, only 23% of them actually go on to college. So when we look at those things, we definitely need a poverty rate added so that we can look at wraparound services for those schools. So we have tutoring for kids that are on that bubble. When we look at state testing, we need to, look at maybe some of that grant funding that we have available and use that money to actually put in a formula. So when we're looking at the budget and when we say we can't do it because of the budget, move some of that grant money over. And when we look at what's already in place for the remedial services, if a teacher or say the counselor, whoever makes the master schedule, the administrator makes the master schedule, they don't know how to schedule properly, they're not going to get the funding for those, for the REP and those kind of services. So currently, there's not even a statewide training for people who are building master schedules. That's another thing that the state superintendent can do to ensure that the funding is adequately spread out. So if you're over testing, you have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 trainings you have to do at the state level just to be able to implement a test in your school building as an administrator. But there are no trainings about how to build a master schedule to maximize funding. So that is one of the big issues. So I would definitely say we need to make sure we include a poverty weight as part of the formula. And our current formula is 40 years old. We cannot
Yeah,
continue to operate off of that.
right. And I think you do a good job at highlighting just how complicated funding in education is really, really complicated. I mean, but you're getting it from different sources, including the federal government, Department of Education. Speaking of that, Donald Trump says a lot of things about a lot of things, some of which he means and some of which I don't think he's just sort of talking. But he and other Republicans for years, not just him, it's been a long time. Republicans have sort of had the Department of Education in their sights. Uh, what can you tell us just from your experience as a superintendent, teacher, if we were to lose the Department of Education, federal funding, who would that impact the most? How would that hurt students?
So, number one, it would hurt our most vulnerable. You're taking away oversight. And so, when you look at, if you're a parent, for example, and you know that your child's IP is not being followed or their
Mhm.
504 plan is not being followed, and you go to the school and you make your concerns known, and the school tells you you don't know what you're talking about, you write a letter to the superintendent, they don't respond. You can file an OCR complaint.
Right,
All right. And so there's oversight there. And you have a separate agency that comes in, they evaluate it, and then they tell the school what they're going to do, or they're going to lose that federal funding if they do not comply. And so that is powerful for a parent. They so that enforcement of civil rights laws, so that you don't have discrimination of students in special education or 504. Think about the federal programs that come from the Department of Education.
hmm
Think about federal loans. That's when you go to college, to be an educator, those federal loans and federal loan forgiveness programs, student aid, all of those things not only impact K through 12, it also impacts the college level. So we need that oversight. And I think that is a terrible mistake, and it lets other countries know how we prioritize education in the United States. It's
right,
low priority. And so those are some of my concerns if we look at that. And I did read up on that, and they said, well, there's certain programs that we would keep. We would try to keep the oversight, or we would try to keep the Pell Grants and loans filtering through the federal. Well, if you're going to do that, then keep the Department of Education.
right. Yeah, it makes no
So
sense
yes, it
to
doesn't
do
make
that.
sense. So that
Right,
means if you're going to keep certain things, that means you're going to shift the responsibility of those things to someone that doesn't have the experience in that field. So where is it going to go to the FBI? Is it going to go to, like, who's going to do the work? And
right,
so you need that department where you're hiring people that specifically understand K through 12 and post-secondary education. And I think it's just a terrible mistake to do something like that. And so that's another thing. As state superintendent, you call your other superintendents in other states, and you get on the phone and you advocate against stuff like this,
right.
because we're the experts in that field, and we need to stand up for Georgians and our kids across the nation.
Okay. All right, thanks. Okay, so we've talked. A lot of these state positions, like school superintendent, are very specialized, education, insurance, like that sort of thing. But we all have a political thing that we have to go through here in these primaries and in the general election. And
Mhm.
for a lot of Democratic voters and even the Democratic candidates, I would say most Democratic candidates are pretty close to each other on positions. You're not super far off
Yeah.
from each other. So a lot of the times voters are looking for also besides the issues, they're looking for do you have like a vision for what your campaign is going to do, how you're going to run it, how you're going to win,
Yes.
either the primary or the general? So, what can you tell me about all that? I know it's kind of a vague question, and
Yeah.
you don't have to give me all your secrets or anything. Just kind of give me an idea of how you're approaching running in a big state like Georgia.
Yes. So number one, not to give too many of my secrets. So the base of everything is raising funds. It
Right.
costs money to run a statewide election. And I do understand that I'm not in the pockets of, big corporations and all of that kind of stuff and the important people. I am depending on parents and my former students and everyday people that know we need a change. And I'm dependent on them to support the campaign in different ways, financially, number one, but also with their time, right? And with their voices. So I plan to, that's the core of everything. The second level is just students. When I calculated how many students I've touched in the state of Georgia, it's been in the thousands, just over over the course of all the years I've worked in education. So the second layer is reaching out to students that I've taught, and students that I've led, as an administrator, just reaching out to them through through the same platforms they use to plan their 10-year and 5-year reunions. So reaching out to them just to let them know I'm running so that they can, spread the word out as well. I'm also looking at areas of concern. So when I look at proficiency rates and when I look at achievement rates in our state, I have a plan to go to those school systems and speak at different events to those parents because they're being affected the most by the current leadership because they're not seeing gains. And so I plan to appeal to them as well. Also, using my social capital, I have a lot of friends from different parts of Georgia. And so my plan is to go into different organizations and churches and things of that nature just to speak and to appeal. The other part, and this is what I do outside of running for office, is I work on voter registration. One of my goals is to make sure our young people don't get disenfranchised. So whether I win or lose, my campaign is focused on getting people out to vote. You have to let your voice be heard, whether it's me or my opponent. That's fine, but you have to be a part of this process. And so that is my core, that's the core base of it. And just making sure that my message is heard, making sure people understand what I'm about and what I stand for and what my experience is. And hopefully that will speak for itself.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I think we've covered most of the stuff that we were going to go through. So always at the end, I like to give a candidate a chance to give me your stump speech. Why should the voters of the Democratic Party of Georgia elect Lydia Powell as our new state school superintendent? So
Okay.
give me your stump speech on that as we conclude.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I believe that I am a strong candidate for State Superintendent of Schools because of my experience in K through 12 education. In addition to that, I'm also an adjunct professor at Thomas University, so I understand the student side, professor side, and funding side of post-secondary education as well. I've worked as a parent that has had to advocate for my child. I've worked as a teacher that has had to advocate for my classroom, and I've worked as an administrator that has had to advocate for teachers in my building. And right now, we need someone boots on the ground. We need someone that understands that. And with my priorities, I believe that we can move Georgia forward. I don't believe Georgia should be 30th in the nation as far as our education is concerned.
Right.
I believe our students are better than that. I believe that, if you have the right person in this office who knows how to use the resources that Georgia has, use the influence that Georgia has, we're considered Hollywood South now. We have to leverage that to have gains for our students. My top priorities is universal preschool education in the state of Georgia. Second priority is teacher retention and recruitment. And third priority is that mental health and wellness, which is part of school safety, because that's another job I have at my school is school safety. But mental health and wellness is a huge part of that. And so with those three priorities, I do believe we can move Georgia forward. So I believe I'm your candidate. Say yes to Lydia Powell, your educational superintendent. If you want to know anything else about me, you can look on my webpage, drlydiapowell.com. You can also email me at votedrlydiapowell@gmail.com. I would appreciate your support. I also want to know your feedback. What are some issues you see in our state? Because I attend a lot of meetings. I go to the Delta Days at the Capitol, Jack and Jill Days at the Capitol. I write my legislature. So also share me your concerns, whether you want to vote for me or not. What are your concerns? Because I want to make those concerns known. So thank you so much again for your time. And again, say yes to Dr. Lydia Powell for your next state superintendent of schools.
Lydia, thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy woman. You're a very busy woman. So I appreciate you taking your time with us today. Good luck. I hope to see you around in the weeks and months ahead as we head toward the May primary. We've got special elections going on here like crazy right now, so I'm
Yeah.
kind of bewildered by all that. But May primary, I keep wanting to say March. It's May 19th is the primary date. So I look forward to seeing you around, and good luck to you in all your endeavors. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. And please feel free to invite me out, to come to one of y'all's meetings. I'll be happy to come. So just let me know. And I know you're focused on your special election right now. So after your special election, I'll be more than happy to come.
I will do. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.